Welcome to the newest edition of the Giants Huddle podcast. My name is John Schmeelk. You recognize the man with me here, friend of the program, joins us every year a couple of times, really gracious as always, the one and only Charles Davis from NFL Network. Charles, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, John. It's good to hear your voice again. Thanks for having me on. I'm just glad we got to see each other in person at the Combine this year, which was nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Face-to-face conversations are always better, and now it's good to have a longer conversation with you today. Before we get to, just to remind everybody, you can find the Giants Huddle podcast on the Giants mobile app, giants.com/podcast, and your favorite podcast platforms. And as a reminder, for draft season, make sure you go subscribe on that separate podcast platform. It's no longer appearing on the Giants Huddle podcast feed. Charles will, of course, be a part of NFL Network's coverage of the NFL draft, which takes place in just 2 weeks, Charles. We're getting there, man. From April 28th to April 30th, you will be in beautiful Las Vegas. When he's not in the club, he will be at the draft, checking everything out. So, Charles, what's your feel now? You know, we've heard a lot of news and we've had free agency since the Combine. How has your general thoughts about this draft evolved since we spoke in Indy? You've looked at more players and things have happened around the league.
Yeah, John, I think as usual, with all the drafts that you and I have been fortunate enough to cover, there is one pretty strong basic that comes out of every draft. And that is, if there are quarterbacks at the top that are truly marquee, the sense is that, whoa, we got a heck of a draft this year. And if there aren't quarterbacks who are truly marquee, people start questioning the draft. I think this is an excellent draft overall, but the quarterbacks are not marquee. The quarterbacks are not, face of the franchise guys that we think of right now. They could grow to be them. They could be down the road. We haven't always gotten it right. Russell Wilson was a third rounder.
Dak Prescott, fourth rounder, right?
Dak Prescott's a fourth rounder, So we see those sorts of things. We all know Tom Brady's a patron saint of it all as a sixth rounder. But it is unusual when you get your quarterback at really outside of the top two rounds. Like if you don't get them in round one or two, as a general rule, you're going to be looking for a quarterback again sometime down the road. And even if you get them in 1 and 2, you look for a quarterback down the road. But think about it. Brett Favre was a second round pick. Okay. So a lot of times people forget you can get them in the second round, but your odds much higher in the first part of it. And in this year's draft, John, I think we've all seen it. You've evaluated, I've evaluated. Everyone who's watching us at this moment, they're doing their own evaluations, and we all come down on it different ways. But I do believe there is a consensus that this year's crop of quarterbacks by grade, remember, grade and evaluation, we don't know what the future brings, did not equal last year's top 5 who went in the first 15 picks. So that's where we are.
No, I'm with you. No question. I think you're going to have a bunch of guys with real second-round grades, and teams are going to try to manufacture first-round grades out of these guys because they need one, right?
Right.
When do you think, and I guess let's finish this part of the conversation because it will impact, I guess, where who's available for the Giants at 5 and 7, and then in the second round too. How many quarterbacks do you think go in the first round? When do you think the first one goes off? How do you think the quarterback thing is going to go?
I don't know if you end up doing the mock draft game that I have to do. And
a little bit. It's tough, right? Man. I hate it.
We all do it to some extent. And when I was younger, I thought there was zero value in it. As I've gotten older, I realized there actually is value, and teams see value if they believe in the people that they're reading their mock draft. I remember multiple GMs have told me that they have people that they look at their mock drafts and say, okay, they interest me for this reason. I think that they're plugged into the league. I think they have information. I like their evaluations, all of that. And they look at mock drafts because they're trying to see if there is a consensus or if there is, similarities along the way. If this guy at 28 is always going to this team, maybe everybody's plugged in, teaches you something, that sort of a deal. So for me, when I look at this year's mock drafts, the quarterback thing, look, I did 4 passes at my first mock draft, John, before I ever submitted one for publication. I had 0 quarterbacks in my first 4. 0. And I will take the lie detector test on that. But I thought that's not realistic. That's not the NFL. You said it a couple sentences ago. Someone's going to take quarterbacks. That's just the way this goes. I'm thinking the number is 3 plus or minus in the first round. And I think we start looking at them at 6 with Carolina. That's where I hate to say the draft begins, because the draft begins at 1 with Jacksonville. But the quarterback portion of it, I think, starts at 6, unless we get a major surprise and someone moves up and says, I have to have this quarterback. This doesn't feel like that type of a draft.
No, I'm with you, Charles, 100%. So how do you think the first 4 picks are going to go? Because the Giants, obviously, at 5 are going to be impacted by who's available.
Yeah.
Who are the guys that you think will certainly not be there? What are you hearing? And just how do you think those first 4 picks are going to go? Because I do think, a team like Houston's just a huge wild card.
Yeah, Houston can pick any position, and it's a good pick.
Exactly.
Because they need help everywhere. Now, I am influenced a little bit that they named Lovie Smith as the head coach. So I'm kind of leaning defense with them because, that's what Lovie's known for. But they could opt to go offense and try and continue to help out their young quarterback, Davis Mills, who's impacting this year's draft, because if he came out this year as he was supposed to instead of last year, he likely would have been the number 1 quarterback on the board. So that just tells you a lot about where we are right now. I'm just thinking big, John. Picks 1 through 4, maybe even 1 through 6, right? Definitely 1 through 5. Big. Edge rusher, offensive tackle. That's what I'm thinking as I sit here today. What order? We'll find out. My first mock draft, I had Trayvon Walker from Georgia going 1 to Jacksonville, Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan going 2 to Detroit, Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon going 3 to Houston. That's 3 straight edge rushers right out of the gate. Then I believe we got big, okay? 4 with the Jets, I think it was Ekwonu. 5 for you, the Giants, it was Evan Neal. So I thought big right out of the gate, and then I went quarterback at 6 to Carolina because I said, let's just be realistic. They passed on quarterbacks last year. Remember, they took J.C. Horn. Heck, who was on the board then? Justin Fields and Mac Jones. They let them go. Do they come back this year and still ignore quarterback considering where they are? I find it hard to believe. And a little bit of desperation starts to creep in, and you start to make those moves. So we'll see.
Now I'm with you. When do you think Sauce and Kyle Hamilton enter the conversation?
I think that they actually enter the conversation a lot higher than what people think. I think they start entering the conversation at 2 with Detroit, because both of them. All right. Because Detroit is in that position now of continuing to build their culture, however you want to define that word that we all overuse, and we're all trying to define it, right? We're all trying to say this is what culture is. But that's where, that's what Dan Campbell was brought in as a head coach to do. Brad Holmes, as the GM. Chris Spielman is the special assistant, trying to create something now that's going to be good and sustainable, something they haven't had in a long time in Detroit. I thought they started it last year. A lot of really close losses. I mean, heck, they lost a game when on a 66-yard field goal, they hit the crossbar and bounced over. Justin Tucker, who's the best kicker in the league. I mean, that's the type of thing that happened to them last year. So to me, at 2, a Kyle Hamilton fits everything you want. The best player at his position in the draft. For me, my favorite player in the draft. He comes in right away, gives them presence in the secondary, helps them out. And Kayvon Thibodeau, they don't have a pass rusher of his ilk. Right now, I think it's Romeo Okwara is their number 1 pass rusher off the edge. So to me, right there at 2, they start. And then you mentioned Sauce Gardner, same thing. Remember, they're still trying to get they're trying to get Akuda, going at 1 corner. You come in and bring Gardner at 2. Now you're starting to have a conversation about the whole thing. But I think you start them at 2. I think the Jets at 4, all in the same conversation. Okay, you're already there. Houston at 3, same conversation because they need help all over the place. I think those 3 that we're talking about, Gardner, I threw in, you said Gardner, Hamilton, and I kind of threw in Thibodeau, kind of round the whole thing out. Starts at 2. They all could be gone before we get to the 10th pick.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think
by 10, all 3 of them could very well be gone, although the Hamilton at safety might slip to 11 at Washington. We'll see. And when I say slip, that's just a word because he's not slipping. He's a heck of a player.
You know, it's funny. We actually did a mock draft last week on one of our podcasts, and that was the landing spot for Hamilton. He got 11 to Washington, and I gave him to Washington. You know, they lost Landon Collins. I thought it was a good fit. You know, we talk about safeties now, Charles, and I guess it's still a position, kind of, but it's not, right? Because is he a box safety? Is he a single high safety? Is the safety you're going to reduce and play over a wide receiver in the slot? Is he a tight end eliminator? You know, what do you think Hamilton's best role is? Because look, I think he's a really good prospect too. The one thing I would not want him to do is cover quicker slot wideouts. I think his frame's too big. He's high hipped, change the direction. I don't think that's his game, which is fine. But what do you think his best role is? Do you see him as more of a Cam Chancellor, robber position guy? Do you see him more as an Earl Thomas single high guy? Is he a guy you want covering tight ends? Where do you think you're going to get the best out of Kyle Hamilton?
I think he's Harrison Smith in a lot of ways, John. And I think what you have described about him fits perfectly into that. When Mike Zimmer was head coach of Minnesota, I used to have an expression when I did a Minnesota game. I used to call Harrison Smith the fixer. Because when anything kind of went wrong on the defense, you would notice that Zim would call certain sets and Harrison Smith would now be in that area. Harrison, fix that. Harrison, fix that. Harrison, fix that. All the things you talked about, not a lot of man coverage out of him, but he'd drop in the box and play. He'd blitz. He would come back into the high center field and be the high safety there. He could play in the two deep. But anytime he was around the ball impacting, that's what you were looking for. I think Kyle Hamilton's a very similar player. He's not a scoop your feet tackler. He's a chest up tackler. Okay. As you mentioned, being tall and high hipped, he's got to come in and get under control as he comes and makes plays. We've seen the range. Like we'll see that tape against Florida State ad nauseum throughout the rest of this process, where he comes from the opposite hash and comes over and makes the interception, the season opener. He has all of those things with the length, with the seriousness about the game, with the football IQ. Look at the family and their background with the basketball and the lacrosse and everything else that's in there. This kid's got it all. He never comes off the field for me. He's that type of a safety. And I like how you described it. Are we positionless with safeties? Some of them are still fitting certain things. As great as Jamal Adams is, do you want him covering it all? Probably not. But when he blitzes, when he's around the line of scrimmage, there's huge impact. He makes plays. So you try and get these guys into the right spots. I think with Hamilton, it'll be from down to down where the right spot is. Maybe not as much man coverage as maybe some others. Like Trayvon Merring last year coming out of TCU. Flat-footed man cover guy could do that. They used him as a high safety in Las Vegas because they were trying to recreate the old Seattle Legion of Boom, and Jonathan Abram would be the low safety. But Merrick could do more of that. But is he as rangy? Is he as big as Hamilton? I would say no.
So let's talk philosophy then, and we'll get back to the draft prospects. I had this conversation. We did an NFC East roundtable, and we kind of talked about how not only the safety position, but the linebacker position is changing too, right? Where Hamilton is now, he could be your high safety and on third and long, third and 7, third and 10, whatever. Right. Or is he just your lone linebacker on the field, but he's really a safety, right? Yeah. So how does that then impact linebackers? What you're looking at that position, if now you're taking safeties and on the money downs, they're the guys that are actually playing the linebacker spot.
But look at all the linebackers we have coming out and look at their size. A lot of them are safety size now.
Yeah, 225, right?
Right, John, we're not in the old days where, we are lining up and Otis Anderson is running behind Jumbo Elliott. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a little bit different deal. Are people still big? Yes, but how many people are really committed to lining up and beating you up in the run game? Not nearly as many. Plus, college football is so spread out on offense that the defenses have naturally gotten smaller, the defenders at every position, because they have to stay on the field. You can't have the 360-pound guy who can only play against the run out on the field. You might never put him out there because you can't get him up because they never huddle and they go fast. So we're seeing the remnants of that. So that's why I'm thinking, hey, Hamilton, if you have enough defenders, let's say you want to play Tampa 2 on 3rd and 8. You could put him in the middle of the field and have him run the pipe as the linebacker if you have enough DBs around him. or he becomes one of the DBs and one of your smaller linebackers runs the pipe as we're doing right now, meaning right down the middle of the field, looking for those crossers that are coming through. So that's where we are. Look at our top linebackers in the draft: Devin Lloyd, Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, Channing Tindall, Troy Anderson, Chad Muma. The only plus-size linebacker that comes to mind as one of my top candidates is Leo Chenal at Wisconsin. He's a 250-plus guy. Everyone else is much more in the 220 to 230 range, and 230 is the big size.
No, look, I'm with you, and I think it kind of and look, Devin Lloyd's a former safety, right? I mean, he literally was a safety, and they just moved him up.
Remember when he had Alec Ogletree?
Yeah.
He was a safety at Georgia before he transitioned to a bigger linebacker in the NFL. We've seen that where they push him forward. It's the old Jimmy Johnson at University of Miami. You push them forward so that you have more speed on defense. Safeties become outside linebackers. Outside linebackers, move them inside if you need to. Outside linebackers can become defensive ends.
Yeah.
Rush them, that sort of a deal, just so you can keep that speed going.
To me, Charles, Sauce Gardner would appear to be the perfect Wink Martindale cornerback. Yeah. You know, you work for CBS too. You do Ravens games. Does he match that profile perfectly? Long, fast, press man?
Absolutely. And, you know, because Wink's going to get after you. So if you're playing behind him as a defender, if you're a corner or a safety, if he doesn't have you blitzing, you better be able to cover. Because Wink's he's going after everyone, and he wants to pressure him up, and he wants you right there on the hip of that receiver, make a play on the football, and off you go. So does he fit? Absolutely. And his development has been tremendous over time. When you think about his time as a player, getting to Cincinnati, and John, look, you and I believe are aligned in that we don't fall in love with numbers or rankings or things, but they are part of the evaluation, right? Some guys are the number one guy in high school. They're the number one guy in college. They're the number one draft pick. It does happen where you run it all the way through. The vast majority, there's growth, there's maturity, there's improvement. Sauce Gardner would be a guy, go back and check in from high school to going to Cincinnati, to this past year at Cincinnati, to where he is in the draft. You've seen the improvement. You've seen the jump in game. You've seen the body maturity. This kid has played well all the way through. It all kind of came together last year. And don't forget, Derek Stingley opened the door for him. Derek Stingley, not being Derek Stingley that we saw as a freshman, allowed a guy like Ahmad Gardner to continue to improve and now be probably the consensus number one corner in the draft.
Giant fans going to knock down my door if I don't ask about offensive linemen. I'm part of there. Schmeelk, you're burying the lead. What are you doing here? You got to talk offensive tackles. So let's say, Charles, and I don't think this is out of the question. Let's say 4 defensive players go in the top 4, right?
Sure.
You get 3 edges and
right.
Sauce.
You're right. It's not out of the question.
Very possible.
Agree. Sauce could go right there at 4 to the Jets.
And let's say the Giants have their pick of the litter. Neal staring at him. Aquanu sitting at him. Cross is staring at him. They have Andrew Thomas. Let's go through this procedure as though we're assuming they want to leave him at left tackle. He's their guy. So you're trying to fill a starting plug-and-play right tackle spot. How do you break down these 3 top tackles, and how would you rank them if you're the guy making this pick for the Giants?
Aquanu is your best road grading blocker to me. All right. The way that I see it, Aquanu from North Carolina State. He actually is built a lot like a powerful guard if you want to run the football a lot. But his footwork, his technique has improved like crazy over time at NC State. But he's that guy that, you know, hey, we're going to run the football. You can just go, okay, cool, I'm in, right? Evan Neal does all of those things as well, but he's done it from a variety of positions. He's played 3 different spots at Alabama and has been all conference or all American at all of them. He shined at each and one of them. So he has that versatility, big physical specimen. I don't think he's quite the run blocker that Aquanu is, but I think he's the most versatile tackle we have in the draft. And I think that he would be, you know, he's again a day 1 starter. Charles Cross is the best pass protector in the draft for Mississippi State. Best footwork, best hand technique, the whole deal. Got plenty of work at it because in Mike Leach's air raid offense, that ball wasn't on the ground very often. There wasn't a lot of turnaround handed to a running back. So that's where his jump will have to occur. Not that it can't. I don't think that he is Andre Dillard, who went to Philadelphia in the first round a few years ago, who's never found traction. Pass protector, not much in terms of the run game, never has gotten there. In fact, he's been bypassed by Jordan Mailata, who was playing rugby. Right? I mean, so this is where we are, right? So that's how I see the three of them. I think if you're sitting there at 5, I don't think you go wrong with Ekwonu or Neal. I would have Ekwonu slightly ahead. But that's one of those ones that if we went in a meeting and I said, I've got Ekwonu slightly ahead, and my GM came back and said, well, I'm taking Neal, I'm not having one of those moments in the room where I'm not shaking the GM's hand. Okay. I was like, yeah, because we got a starter right now. Absolutely. And a mature young kid.
Does it play into your decision-making at all that we've actually seen Neal play right tackle at a high level, while Ekwonu has been a left guard and left tackle? We haven't seen him use that footwork on the right side. And it's easy to say, I'll just switch him over. It's fine. You know, Charles, that would be tough for guys. So how much would that play into your decision-making, knowing we've seen Neal do it, but for Ekwonu, who already has some pass set issues, would have to adjust to doing that at right tackle?
Yeah, I think if it's an absolute have to have a tiebreaker, that kind of becomes it. Like if everything else is equal. But I do know that if I get him right now on the first day of mini camp, OTAs and all that, right tackle, start working on your footwork, I got a long ways to go and a chance to get that done. I'm not quite as concerned about that. Plus, John, you and I have seen, and I bet people could chime in with us right now who are watching, they'd go, the game has changed, you two. The game has changed. It's not strictly left tackle as my pass protector, right tackle is my road grade and run guy, right? We have seen where essentially we want 2 left tackles. New Orleans, think about how well they've had it over the years. Now that Teron Armstead's in Miami, Teron Armstead at left tackle, Ryan Ramczyk at right tackle. You were covered.
Oh, yeah, Charles, I'm not talking about a role difference. I just mean physically learning how to do it, right?
No, you and I are in the same spot. I'm not saying that you're not. I'm just saying that overall, these guys are getting better training that way. I wonder, I think the scouts would be able to tell us, hey, how many reps did he take at right tackle in practice at North Carolina State? Because what a lot of these college coaches are doing now is that they're doing these things to cross-train them in case injuries happen. This does it with an eye towards this kid's pro future, giving him a few more reps doing things he doesn't normally do. People are doing these sorts of things because it comes up in recruiting now. Hey, if I want to get ready to go to the NFL, are you going to help me get ready? So that's happening. But your point is a good one. Neal would win that battle. Absolutely. Because we've seen him do it. You would just have to convince yourself as a team and an organization. Do you think that Ekwonu can do it or not? That's what it comes down to.
All right. So the Giants, let's say they walk away with an offensive tackle at 5, and then they have a decision. Do we want to pick a pass rusher at 7? Do we want to pick a cornerback at 7? And then you start thinking, Charles, all right, our grades are pretty even here. Then you start thinking, all right, I'm picking at 36. Yep. If you're a GM in this year's draft class, do you feel better about that cornerback you might get at 36? Or do you feel better about the defensive end the edge rusher you might get at 36? And who are some of the names that you think might be in the mix for you at those 2 spots in the second round?
I'm so old school that, I need the WD-40 every day, right? I'm going to squeak when I go by. So that pass rusher is paramount for me. Now, remember Greg Williams when he was DC at Cleveland? Remember the year that they passed on Bradley Chubb and took Denzel Ward?
Yep.
Remember what Greg said? Nowadays, the ball's out of the quarterback's hand so fast. I need to cover guy maybe a little bit more than I need to rush guy because the rush guy doesn't get there to impact it, which was a very interesting thing. Mike Pettin, as a defense coordinator at Green Bay, told me, we play the pass first now, not the run. I was like, what? What are we doing here? But they're not wrong. That's a lot of where the game is going. So to me, the pass rushers, even though there are a ton of them in this draft, I want to get my best pass rusher early. I think I can do a better job getting a corner later. That's where I would go. So if you want to talk about some of those edge guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, are we talking about second round?
Yeah, top of the second round.
Like talk
36.
First round?
Yeah.
Top of the second round. Now you're starting to talk about where's Nick Bonito from Oklahoma going to go? This guy's got incredible bend. Can he come out? Can he come and get someone for me? Does Boye Mafe make it to the second round out of Minnesota?
Tight.
He's right there in that. Who's willing to wait for David Ojabo to get healthy out of Michigan?
Yeah.
And how far do we go into the second round with him? I had him in my first round in my first mock draft because I gave him to Tampa, a team that pretty much has everything and you can afford to wait. But you and I both know injury situations like this, typically we get to the second round. Who wants to wait for Ojabo? And can he make a return like Cam Akers did last year, which was off the charts, right? I mean, none of us saw that with an Achilles before. Drake Jackson from USC, I think, is on the – he was a guy that John, when we started this process last year, many were talking top 10 for him. Hasn't been quite as consistent to merit that. But I do think that he's starting to make a move here as we get closer to the draft where people are liking his skill set. Now we're getting into the top of the second round where we're saying, okay, now it starts to fit a little bit. Those are some of the names that immediately come to mind from me. Because I still think Karlaftis from Purdue is going to go in the first round.
Yeah.
But if somehow he managed to slip to the second round, that'd be huge.
How about corner at the top of that second round, Charles? Let's say you get then the tackle in the end at 5 and 7, you need that corner if they have to let go of Bradbury or whatever happens with him. What kind of corners are you thinking about there? Does McDuffie get there? Does Booth get there? Or you have to go into that next tier, which for me, then you're kind of, closing your eyes and rolling them bones a little bit.
Yeah, see, I don't think McDuffie and Booth get there.
Neither do I.
I think they're both gone in the first round. Kyler Gordon comes to mind. But here's the thing. How much zone is Wink going to play?
He's not.
Then the Kyler Gordon's probably not his guy. I'm talking about the corner from Washington, who I like a lot, but he's much more to me a zone corner than he is a man-to-man stack him up type of a guy. Zone corner makes a lot of plays on the football, but he probably wouldn't be your guy there. Can Khair Elam from Florida, who's battled a few injuries, but boy, has he looked the part. Boy, has he moved well. He likely is available as we're starting to stop to second. He could sneak into the first if there's a run. But I think that he's likely to be available. A Cam Taylor-Britt out of Nebraska, he's starting to make that physical type of a corner that you're looking at. Roger McCreary, Auburn. Does he make it to the second round? I think there's a chance that he does. These are the types of guys now that these are the names that are starting to come off the board for you as we start to get into that second round. Kobe Bryant from Cincinnati, who played opposite Sauce. I think he hurt himself at the combine with how he ran, don't you, John? Because he had everything you were looking for, all the credentials. Remember how many plays came his way because people were avoiding, Ahmad Gardner? And he did a great job holding up, but he didn't run fast enough. I think that pushed him probably to the third round.
How about day 2 offensive linemen? Let's hit that too. You can do tackles, or we want to stick with the interior maybe. We're going to assume the Giants get a tackle at 5 and 7. I think Zion's gone. Kenyon Green's gone. Linderbaum's gone, right? Once you get past that group, who are some of the center guards that you like in that, day 2 area that you think can provide and plug and play value there as the Giants try to fill out an offensive line where really, they need 4 long-term answers next to Andrew Thomas.
Jamari Sawyer, Georgia.
Ooh.
Love that kid.
Hey, great tape versus Michigan, right? Whew.
Oh, how about what he did in the SEC championship game where he moved positions during the game?
Yeah.
And plugged right in and played. Did you get a chance to meet him at all, John?
I did listen to him at the combine. I listened to his availability. He just seems like a real solid guy, man.
Pretty impressive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I really was big on him. It'll be interesting to see what Luke Goedeke does. Goedeke from Central Michigan, because he's a tackle, but I feel like he can move inside the guard and be a good player and pretty quickly. I'm eager to see where people have him ranked and how they have him scouted that way. I think now we're talking about a Sean Ryan from UCLA who plays tackle. But you see that frame on him?
Dude, he looks like a guard, man.
Does he not look like a guard? So you and I, with our eyes, I was like, what do you mean he's a tackle? He looks like, that big oh man, that dude.
He's built like a block of granite, man. He's a tank.
He absolutely is. I think of Lasita Smith from Virginia Tech. I watched some more tape on him last night. Former tight end, moved inside. Okay. And I'm going to give you a center who can play guard, former tight end from Memphis State, Dylan Parham.
I love Parham. He's an athlete, man. He can move.
Athlete, okay? Move, get to the second level. To me, he reminds me of where we are with our centers nowadays. What we saw with Creed Humphrey last year, what we've seen for years with Jason Kelsey, with Corey Lindsley, with Rodney Hudd. How many years have we said those guys are kind of undersized? And every year they're going to the Pro Bowl.
You want to go back old school? Talk about Mark Stepnoski back in the early 90s if you want.
These guys all move, play well. Josh Myers from Ohio State came out and went to Green Bay like that last year. They're not all built like Nick Mangold now.
Right.
Because you remember how big Nick was. That's just a whole different ballgame. But those are some of the guys that I would take a good hard look at. Yeah.
All right, last two. Give me a couple of your day 3 pet cats. Who are the guys that Charles Davis says, I love this guy. The league might not pick him in the top 100, but man, I love this guy. He's going to be a good NFL player. Give me a few names. Okay,
Kyle Duggar went to Lenore Ryan, right? So now scouts actually know where Lenore Ryan is. Okay. They've got a receiver named Derek Young, who's come out of Lenore Ryan this year, who's like 6'3", 210, 215 pounds. Runs 4.41, jumps out of the gym, the whole deal. And when you watch his tape, it's interesting because their offense changed from time to time. At one point, they were pro style. Then they went to like Delaware wing T. Then they came back to some more pro style. I've got him on tape lining up in line and blocking people at the line of scrimmage. I've got him on tape on the jet sweeps, turning the corner and dropping shoulders on people. I've got him on tape running routes downfield. Now, what I don't see enough of, John, is contested catches because he's so physically dominant in Division II that most of the time he's wide open. I mean, dudes aren't really there, okay? But he's a guy that by day 3, and you start to look down the line, I'm telling you, I've kind of, you know, I hate to use the term fall in love. I fall in love with too many guys, right? I'm the guy that everyone's mad at because, well, you told me you love me, you know? Oh, yeah, you're right. I did. You know, he's one of those guys that I think is like that down the road, I'm going to really like what I see out of him and want to have a little bit more of a conversation. Look, I'm going to give you a linebacker named Malcolm Rodriguez from Oklahoma State. Third day guy, his background, I think you already know it, right? High school quarterback. I'm not sure they lost very many games, okay? High school wrestler, multiple time state champion. Makes play after play after play after play after play. Tackle by Rodriguez. He's going to come right in, core special teams guy right out of the gate, and over time, you may find your way to work him into the lineup. Those are a couple I'll give you. I don't know how many more you want me to give you, but those are a couple right out of the gate that really I like a lot. Okay. And if you're ever in the market for a safety, I tell everybody all the time, not late in the draft, you better get him early. It's Jalen Pitre from Baylor. I'm just telling you, I think you know me, when I put a stamp on, I try to hang in there on him. This kid, Tyrann Mathieu, the patron saint of instincts, right? He's been followed up by Antoine Winfield. He's been followed up by Elijah Molden. I think this year's edition is Jalen Pitre.
Dude, that guy can cover too, man. Like, you want to line, like we talk about not putting Kyle Hamilton in the slot. You want to put Pitre on a receiver in the slot, you're good.
The only worry I have with him is sometimes he can get a little overwhelmed with a sizable tight end.
Yeah.
You can't have every matchup covered all the time. And by the way, there'll be times where he'll slip that tight end and beat him with his own speed and still make the play. So he's not going to get overwhelmed on every snap, but you will see it on tape. Some of those plus size tight ends kind of box him off occasionally. That happens to a lot of guys. But this kid, I'm with you. Drop him in, play him at nickel safety, and off you go.
How do you compare him to Dax Hill? Because I think they're kind of similar, right?
Dax Hill's faster. Dax Hill is a legit.
He looks like a slot corner to me, not a safety.
Absolutely. And that's why he might sneak into the first round, because Dax Hill, you can play him at safety, absolutely. But I think you're also talking about in passing situations, you want more speed on the field. Dax Hill provides that all day long and twice on Sunday. He can flat out go. I'm with you. He's much more of a nickel corner. And some people draft him strictly to play that And we all know nowadays nickel corner is a starter in the NFL. You're on the field 70% of the snaps. So he would be there. Yeah, Hill's faster, okay? Pitre, instincts, I'm never going away from that. Where the ball is, it's kind of like that of watching an old movie where the bouncing ball took you to the lyrics of the song. Just follow the bouncing ball, and that's Jalen Pitre right to where the actual ball is, and that's where the play will be made. But Dax Hill can flat out go.
All right, final question. I'm going to make it a little tougher. I'm not going to just make you give the Giants at 5-7. I'm going to make you go 36-2. Give me, you can either call it your best case scenario, your prediction, however you want to take it for the Giants. How would you feel good about it coming out of 5-7 and 36?
At 5, I want one of those two tackles. I want Neal or I want Aquano. If I get either one of them, I start my happy dance. But I do realize at 7, I can come back. And somehow, if Kayvon Thibodeau slides, boom, I go get him. I think you got the right structure in place, the right people around. He would be terrific opposite Azeez Ojulari. And then I come back at what, 37, you said?
36.
36, come back at 36. Heck, is there a chance Kenyon Green has just moved his way down?
Oh, boy. If it is, you run the card up.
He doesn't get into the first round because I think he was the guy, John, when we went to Indianapolis where it was kind of a lock deal. I think people walked away from Indianapolis and struggled a little bit with some of the combine stuff they saw. So I went back to the tape and said, oh, yeah, forget that. This guy can flat out play. So that scenario, I would be extremely happy with if I were the Giants.
Oh, no question. How cute do you get, Charles, at 6 with the Panthers? The Giants had to try to predict what the Panthers might do at 6 when they think they're pick at 5. Do you just pick the best guy, or do you try to predict who the Panthers might pick and then wait? You know how it goes.
I would mess around with it because the Panthers are also offensive tackle needy.
Exactly.
Just because we're predicting that they're going to go desperation a little bit, predict quarterback, that doesn't mean that's what Scott Pitre, the GM, is going to do. He may have a whole different thought process on it. So I'm not getting cute with them at all. Not one bit. I am going and getting the guy that I want right there. I'm not playing any games because all of a sudden you play that game and then you hear, and with the 6th pick, the Carolina Panthers select, and you're like, whoa. That wasn't how the game was supposed to be played. Hey, Scott, what are you doing? And then you're mad at yourself.
Yeah, you don't want to replay the Devontae Smith incident from last year's draft.
Not at all. And I will tell you this, I'm really eager to see what happens with Jermaine Johnson, the pass rusher from Florida State, because I mocked him in at 7 with you guys on my first one, but he can fit anywhere that high all the way through the end of the first round.
Charles, am I crazy for liking him more?
That's where all that is going right now, John. There's a lot of discussion about exactly where does he fit. Some people think it's too rich at 7. Some people like it there. Some people really think he's much more when we start to get into the 20s. So this is going to be an interesting conversation.
Am I crazy and out of my mind for liking his tape better than Travon Walker's? Am I nuts?
No, you're not, because you saw him get to do things that Travon Walker did not get to do.
Right. Off the edge, right?
See, Travon Walker in Georgia, you saw when you plugged in the tape, how many times you see Travon Walker occupying people and Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, and Channing Tindall were just cleaning up.
Yeah, he was two-gapping.
Right? How many times did you see him slant, twist, stunt, eat up one or two, and here comes the linebacker, crushes somebody. Now, he will need, I'm talking about Trayvon Walker, he will need to add to his pass rush arsenal. He played in tight a lot of the time. But how about him pass rushing inside? He's already there. Because he's
three
done
technique
that
all the way for me. I think he's a 3-tech and a 4-3, man.
He's already there. And if you move him inside there in those sub and nickel packages, he's already got it. It's the edge stuff he'll need some extra work on. Jermaine Johnson, he's been doing the edge stuff. That's why getting away from Georgia was huge for him, because now he's full-time on the field and he's doing what he does best, down in and down out. At Georgia, everybody acts like he never played at Georgia. That wasn't true. His rotational system. He went someplace where he can get full-time work. Not as much success by any stretch of the imagination, but his development as a pass rusher aided by him going to Tallahassee.
For the folks that don't know, Charles is a New York guy. He's rocking the New Paul's hat for New Paul's New York. So I always give you a chance.
I appreciate it.
For New Paul's. What do you got?
Go Huguenots. Gotta love it. It's funny, John. I was on a show yesterday on Sirius XM NFL radio. Does that sound like I'm name dropping? Sorry about that. And a young man called in and told me he's a graduate of New Paltz High in 1996 and was asking a question. Now, how great of a day did I have on that one?
The best. It's the best. It made your whole day.
It doesn't get any better than that. And don't forget to tell my guy Scott Pioli, those Washingtonville Wizards were awfully good. But, we should have met on a neutral field in 1980. That's all I'm saying.
The
Neutral
rivalries
site.
of upstate New York football are endless.
Always tease Scott. I was like, hey, man, we could have met on a neutral field. You guys didn't want to come out of Orange County. I don't know what to tell you.
Charles, always great to talk to you, man. Again, you'll see him on NFL Network's coverage of the draft from April 20th to April 30th in Las Vegas. He mentioned his work on Sirius XM. You can find his mock draft on NFL.com. Anything I missed, Charles? Anything else you're up to that I should hit? Are you good?
Well, there should be an article coming up in the next day or so where I talk about guys I'd pound the table for. Last year, we had 17 of them. Luckily enough, 14 of them were drafted. The other 2 went to camps, and one last one didn't go anywhere, but he's got a chance to come back this year. So these are guys I believe, and it's not necessarily all day one guys. It's day one all the way through. People I believe in are going to be NFL players. This year we should have 12 or 13 of those guys coming up. So looking forward to that. A second mock draft coming out early next week, I believe.
Okay.
And then the week of the draft will be my last mock draft, probably Wednesday before draft day.
Get those mocks rolling. It's mock draft season, Charles. Always great to talk to you, man. Thanks so much. I appreciate the extra time. I was really going to wrap 10 minutes ago. Then we just had a great conversation. It just kept going, man. I appreciate it, brother. Be good.
It always happens like that with you because you are terrific at what you do. And I can never thank you enough for how great you are with me. Thank you so much.
Charles, you're awesome at what you do. That's why we love to have you on, man. We appreciate it. That's another episode of the Giants Huddle Podcast. We thank Charles Davis for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Giants mobile app and on podcast platforms everywhere.